G'day, I'm Joel Gelding. Welcome to The Tackle, our weekly wrap-up of all the big issues from the weekend's AFL action and everything that's coming up. My footy expertise involves pretty much playing amateur football. I don't know how I got this gig, but Shaun McManus is well experienced.
Yeah, well, it's all about the impact, Joel, and I believe you did have a massive impact on the amateur football league there when you were playing there.
I'm still playing.
Very little at AFL level, so we're about equal, to be honest.
Let's talk about the weekend's games. How about Geelong, Sydney? I think everybody tipped Geelong because it was at Skilled Stadium, whatever it's called now.
Skoda, Skilled,
something.
Whatever
the name of that stadium is, and they actually blew the Swans away over the weekend.
They did. It's like a fortress down there, and I'll call it Cardinia Park because that's when I first started playing down there against the old Chestnuts down there. They were fantastic, and like I said, impossible to beat them down there. Full house as you would expect, and Geelong are going along brilliantly. It looks like Fremantle will play Geelong in the first semi-final in 2 weeks' time.
Now, Stephen Motlop took an absolute screamer as well. That is a contender for Mark of the Year. That was absolutely awesome, and all of a sudden now, the Swans lost to Collingwood. Big loss to Geelong. They play Hawthorn this weekend, but we'll get into that into just a sec. But you'd be happy with the way the Dockers performed against Port Adelaide over the weekend, Shaun?
Absolutely fantastic. Came out in the first quarter and smoked them, put them on the back foot from day one, and that just set the scene to be able to run away with a 70-plus point win. And it was similar to the way Geelong played against West Coast Eagles the week before. Come out early, come out hard, set your intentions, and get the job done that way.
Well, Port Adelaide haven't been playing that bad this year. For them to come over and get belted in the way they did shows how well the Dockers are going. I need to bring something up with you though, Shawnee. You're not going to like hearing this, but in my footy circles, the ones that I hang around with, which is just a couple of blokes I have a beer with after amateur games, they think maybe Fremantle have a bit of a soft draw. Your thoughts?
Well, it only is now because we're playing GWS, St Kilda, Melbourne. Those teams kind of for the first time this year. Now, all the other teams were playing them and getting percentage boosters either at the start or in the middle when we were battling it out with the top teams at that stage. So, swings and roundabouts. We don't get to play GWS twice or the Gold Coast twice.
Which the Crows did
Melbourne
last year.
twice. Thank you very much. Yeah. And there's a reason why Port Adelaide are in the top 8 this year. So I believe it's been in our favour to play these teams at the end, no question, because we're going to win the last 4 games of the season. But, it was a real battle, through May and June for Fremantle.
Just quickly, lastly on them, would you prefer them to be playing the bigger top 4 teams going into the finals? You would, wouldn't you?
I would only think maybe one, because it's all about staying fresh and staying injury-free. When you're playing the top 4 teams, you're throwing the kitchen sink at them constantly, and you can, week in, week out, it can slow you down. Fremantle have had a pretty good run, as you said. They've been able to work on a few things and change things up, which has kept the guys fresh. And I'm pretty sure you'll see a few guys getting rested this weekend against St Kilda.
Well, our final game from the weekend we're going to look at is Carlton Essendon. Nobody tipped the Bombers to win, especially after the week that they had last week. All the press, horrible stuff. The press conference with James Hird, everything that went on. Even our very own Shaun McManus didn't tip Carlton. Let's take a look at this.
No, Essendon will lose. The wheels fell off like they have the previous 2 years. Understandably, they're under this pressure, but if you go back through time, 3 years in a row, the second half of the year, they've barely won 2 games, mate, both years. So you cannot back Essendon this weekend.
So that bit you in the face a bit there?
Yeah, well, you know why. There we go again. I used to be a Blue supporter many moons ago when I was a junior player. But I would never, ever go for them again because they kicked 22 points. They had that game shot to pieces every single quarter, just about every single minute of the game until the last 30 seconds when David Zaharakis kicked that goal. Carlton, you suck.
9 goals, 22. You don't really deserve to win a game of football kicking that inaccurate. And if you can't beat Essendon with the week that they've had last week, maybe you should not play the rest of the season either. And let's have a look at this weekend's game, Shawnee, because there are a few belters. Starting things off with Sydney and Hawthorn. Who do you tip for this big blockbuster?
Well, I don't think you can go past Sydney, but Hawthorn, should I say. But Sydney will be reeling after their loss to Geelong down there at the Cattery. Interesting enough, the way things are situated, they'll have to play each other the following week as well.
Interesting. So 2 grand final rematches in a row.
Absolutely.
And one in the final, so that'll be great. So your tip there is with Hawthorn. I thought Port Adelaide Carlton would be an interesting one, just because if Essendon get booted out like we expected, Carlton might slip into the finals, and there might be a clash with them too. We don't know, that might line up. Who do you tip this weekend?
Well, we're going for Port Adelaide because after the weekend's performance by the Blues, you suck. We cannot have that. 22 points. Can't tip them this week.
2 rages against the Blues in one tackle segment. Essendon Richmond, I thought would be a belter as well. We know the Bombers aren't going to play in finals. Well, we don't know that yet, but these are always very, very big clashes between these two clubs.
Huge clash at the G. Obviously, there'll be people hanging from the rafters there. Essendon will get beaten by plus 20 points. James Hird will get suspended later on today for a year. The club will get fined $2 million and lose some of their top draft picks for the next 2 years and their premiership points, obviously. And who cares, really? They're making up the numbers at the moment the way they're playing, so take the fine, get rid of the points and have a holiday, boys.
I just asked for the tip and he just gave us the rundown of what's happening with the Bombers, so I won't ask you about that now. Collingwood Kangaroos, I think the Kangas proved once again over the weekend when they sort of fought it out against Hawthorn that if they just get their stuff together, they might be able to compete next year. But what about this weekend?
Yeah, they'll go down. And I'm sick of people saying that they're the best team outside of the 8, Dermot Brereton, aimed at you. They're in 10th or 11th spot for a reason, because they have not won. And on the weekend, everyone can say, geez, they played well. Guess what, guys? You did not win.
Okay, let's wrap things up by taking a look at the top 5 in the Dream Team points. It's a fired-up man today. I love the anger and aggression. It's good. Nick Riewoldt at the top. We didn't expect St Kilda to have a solid win over the weekend, but he kicked a few snags, so he got up there.
Yeah, I tipped them in that one against Gold Coast, so well done to those guys. Tommy Rockcliffe from Brisbane, again, they beat the Bulldogs. Interesting that Vossi's gone. They've still been able to win games. They're possibly a chance to win. No, they're not. They'll get beaten by Geelong this week. What am I talking about? Interesting, that one. Scotty Thompson, your mate from Adelaide. Is he about time? Is he bordering on retirement?
Well, he won the BNF last year, no. But I think he hasn't had a good year, and I think a lot of people are probably pretty quick to jump on him because he's starting to push up in the age area, but it doesn't help if the rest of the team isn't playing well. So
good point.
One more year for Scott Thompson, I think, or 2 or 3. It's up to him. Who else to round it out? Dustin Martin snuck in there.
Dustin Martin had a great game for Richmond Tigers in a massacre against GWS, and watch was Kevin Sheedy's last ever home game for GWS, and he made the big spiel. He had Andrew Demetrio and all the gang there waiting and for his team to get rolled by 130 points or something along those lines.
Well, no, the big speech worked. They played good in the first quarter, but it was the other 3 that they need to work on next year. But that's it for the tackle. We will see you again next week, and we might have to cover a few things that are going over with Essendon and Shaun's new hatred for Carlton. We'll see you then.